Wow. What an incredible video. A fantastic tribute and some real messages there. First of all, I can't imagine how much work went into putting that together. But it's absolutely incredible. I learned a lot in that video about Uncle Bob. But it also triggered a lot of memories. Those banana peels, those were so much fun. I love seeing the cars over the years, particularly the Thing, which will always be something where you see an old Volkswagen, you'll think of Uncle Bob. Now, we are going to open it up in a couple of minutes to people to come share some stories, but maybe I'll go first to get things rolling. Now, my memory is not the best, so if anybody disagrees with my stories, only let me know if it makes the story better. Like I said, there's many different things in the world that make you think of Uncle Bob. Now, I remember as a kid visiting the Bailey family home, and Uncle Bob loved greyhounds. He loved greyhounds that needed to be rescued and provided loving homes. And I don't know how many greyhounds he had over the years, but I certainly remember a Cisco, a George, a Moose, and I feel like there was a couple different buddies. There was about 20 dogs, geez, that's amazing. But on this particular day when we were having dinner at the Bailey house, I do remember we were having a turkey dinner in the dining room, which is beside the kitchen. And unbeknownst to us, while we were having dinner, there was a greyhound taking the turkey off the counter in the next room. So greyhounds are another one of those things that when I see a greyhound, I do think of Uncle Bob. Some of the others, like I said, an old Volkswagen, a John Deere tractor, or for me, having 6-year-old boys. When I see Bob the Builder, I always thought of Uncle Bob. Because could he build it? Yes, he could. Now, I know we'll hear a lot of stories today about projects, so I'd keep this concise, but Uncle Bob had just a gift for making projects so much bigger and better than you ever could imagine. And when most of us would see a small job or a small project around the house, he would make it so much better, and he really looked at the art of the possible and sort of broke down the walls that we would, literally and metaphorically, that would be there. But he was also a teacher, and if you were around him, you learned a lot by listening to Uncle Bob. And I recall being at the Bailey house one time, and this is just one silly example, but he was showing me something he recently bought, and I saw it in the video with Max. Uncle Bob always had the coolest stuff, and he also put a lot of thought into what he bought. And this particular thing he showed me was the newest purchase. It was made in the Netherlands. He told me all about the engineering of this machine. He told me about how it could be taken all apart if it needed to, and any individual component could be replaced. Uncle Bob loved coffee, and so do I. So on that day, he was telling me about his coffee maker. Years later, we needed a new coffee maker. So who did I reach out to? Uncle Bob. I sent him a note and I told him that he had told me about his coffee maker years previous, and I wanted to make sure I was getting the right one. He said, "You've got a great memory, and that's iffy. I have a selective memory." But I did tell him, "Uncle Bob, when you speak, I listen." And he said sarcastically, "I'm glad somebody does." So for me, when I see a Technivorm Mocha Master coffee machine, I think of Uncle Bob. Now, one more lesson from Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob could teach a lesson without trying and without really thinking about it, and just by being himself. And one lesson I took away was the value of simple gestures. So I'll take you back to a warm June day in Wyerton. I walked out the front doors at Wyerton District High School, and I looked at the line of school buses to find my ride home. But on that day, one of the vehicles stood out. It was a 1973 Volkswagen Thing, with all the school buses, waiting to drive me home. Now, Uncle Bob was never afraid to be a spectacle, and certainly neither am I. And on that day, I certainly was a spectacle, being picked up in the thing. But it was amazing, and I hadn't forgotten that moment of the surprise pickup at school. That was a small, simple gesture, very minor, but really made an impact, and I never forgot that. So for that ride, for everything else over the years, for every lesson, for every witty joke, thank you to Uncle Bob. Now, we're going to go to a video from Dave Wright next.